Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. We have Neda from Barcelona City Council, who's going to talk about Barcelona's Superblocks. So we're very excited to have her here, and we hope that you enjoy the session. While she is delivering the masterclass, you can leave your questions in the chat, and 10 minutes before finishing the session, we will read the questions, and she will be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Julieta. Hello, welcome everyone. As Julieta said, my name is Neda Kostadinovic and I'm in charge of international tasks within our big area in the City Council dedicated to urban planning and housing. So today we will talk about transformation of the city. I will share my screen. So this presentation is talking about what we call reprogramming the city of Barcelona towards a more resilient city. Okay, so welcome again. I hope you enjoyed this session and please make any question afterwards. I will be very happy to answer. So let's start. This is the city of Barcelona, as you know, as you will come. No, many of you will also come here and we will see each other in the site visit, by the way. So this is the city of Barcelona. You can see geographically located between the Collserola Natural Park and the Mediterranean Sea, also between two rivers, Llobregat and Besòs, and other municipalities, right? This is a city of 100 square kilometers, 10 per 10 kilometers, so very dense, compact, one of the densest cities in Europe, okay? Just some basic data about the city of Barcelona. So this clear blue line that you can see with my cursor here is actual municipality of Barcelona. Nevertheless, you can see it's very close to another municipalities. Actually, there are just sometimes just a street, which one side is another municipality and another side is Barcelona. So this is quite, like we kind of say, that artificial administrative division, right? Because the real city is actually the metropolitan area. So about the city of Barcelona, we administratively are divided in 10 districts because it's not drawn here, but you can, it's more or less around 150 to 200,000 inhabitants each district. So we have 73 neighborhoods in total. This neighborhood scale, we can see that it's very important for us, also for the work with the citizens closely. Barcelona in total is 1.6 million inhabitants, and as I said, around 100 square kilometers, so very dense and compact city, just 10 per 10 kilometers, so very walkable city. It's around 2.5 hours that you would need for crossing entire city. As I said, nevertheless, regarding some tasks, like for example, mobility, for us, the city of Barcelona is actually a metropolitan area. So it's 36 municipalities, 3.2 more or less million inhabitants in a territory of around 600 square kilometers. So you can see this territory is very complex, right? With the airport and the port within it, with the agricultural land, with the Barcelona city, which is the biggest of these 36 municipalities, etc. As you can see here in the down part of the slide, this is a historic evolution of the city from the Roman period. You know, the city of Barcelona is very old, so this in the middle of the city center is this Roman old town, and then medieval, no, and then late medieval city. Then what we call Plan Cerdà, or extension of the city, and nowadays municipality and its territory. Okay, so just a few words. We know that city of Barcelona is under transformation for latest 30 to 40 years in continuity. So since the beginning of democracy in Spain. Nevertheless, we know that the city of Barcelona faces some challenges of what we call old or current urban model. So we know that we struggle with the very high levels of air pollution, as you can see here, many premature deaths, as you can see, also very high level of acoustic pollution in the city, more than 60% of people exposed to a very high level of this acoustic pollution when World Health Organization recommends lower exposure. Then we have a problem with the heat island effect and climate change in the city, the very big number of traffic accidents, as you can see, And the last but not least important, the insufficient green areas in the city. We know that World Health Organization recommends around 10 square meters per inhabitant of proximity green for the health reasons, while Barcelona has an average of 6.6 square meters per person. And we have districts like the one you can see here, Eixample, which is the one that you can see on this image, which is just 1.85 square meters per inhabitant. So very big lack of green, of proximity green in the city. So what can we do in the city to reverse this situation? Well, first of all, in 2020, January, just before pandemics, City of Barcelona declared the climate emergency. This is not that we didn't work with climate before this. We have a climate plan approved on our plenary since 2018. Nevertheless, this, which is very ambitious, nevertheless, this climate emergency declaration just accelerates some specific actions from the climate plan in order to reach our goals that are 50% of reduction of CO2 for 2030, and the neutrality in 2050. And then this is regarding mitigation, and then regarding adaptation, a very ambitious goal to increase 1 square meter per person of new green in the city for 2030. So this is a very ambitious climate plan, very ambitious climate emergency declaration, and very ambitious objectives in the city, right? So in order to work in the transversal projects, so to transform actually the current urban model, we developed a strategy that is called Superblock that started working with the pilots, as the one you will see in Poblenou and then in San Antonio. But then all the strategy of transformation of the city adapted this name of Superblock Barcelona Transformation Strategy. So all the public space and all the urban model, entire urban model that we are transforming, how you move in the city, how you live in the city, how you consume in the city, etc., is belonging to this Superblock Barcelona strategy. So regarding reprogramming, you remember we said that we want to reprogram this living in Barcelona and the urban model in Barcelona. We try to do it through three components, through nature, through proximity, and collaboration. So there will be words about each of those three elements. So starting with nature, we in the city, we want to improve and develop more green, and also to protect the green we have. We want to increase environmental quality and to increase the resiliency in the city. Okay, so how can we naturalize a city that has no spaces for new big parks? If you remember, we have to increase for 1 square meter of person per person for 2030 of new green, which if you calculate would be 160 hectares of new green in the city for 2030, in the city that we don't have space to build these 160 hectares of new green. So how can we do it? Well, basically putting green anywhere where we can, on the rooftops, on the facades, improving every green pocket we can introduce and develop, and improving this biodiversity. So this complexity of introducing green in the city is very important. Of course, about the strategy on greening the city, Superblock is just one tool in order to make it reality, right? It's a tool that works actually to transform the space physically, but we have other plans that are planning the strategy for this green in the city, like nature plan that you can see here. You can download it as well by yourself. We have also indicators of sustainability in the city to track all the sustainability indicators yearly on how we advance on these topics. We also have the plan for trees in the city that you can also download, and the climate plan that I put here that you can also download, very comprehensive and complex climate emergency action plan, actually, that is called now, and that you can find on this web. So regarding the rooftops, if you remember, we said we can work on the rooftops, we can work on the facades, right? So regarding the green roofs or rooftops, it's a very complex strategy. So we introduce it through the subsidies as incentivization of private owners in order to develop their green rooftop, right? Then we have a project on green facades in this strategy. This facade in particular is the mixed, no, it's a productive with energy, and then the green and also the heritage component it has. Normally these green facades are built on what we call medianeras. Medianeras are these blind walls that are also energetically not very efficient because they're just half walls in some previous plan waiting for another building to be built, right? But then with changes of the plan, it stays just the part of the, or let's say the one wall of this building. So it also has a problem regarding energy. So the city takes advantage of this transformation and also improves the isolation of this facade. Okay. The next strategy is green corridors. As you might know, in the city of Barcelona, we have now these big avenues like Diagonal, Meridiana, Gran Via, and others that are wider than the typical street in the city. So they can reach 40 or 60 meters of weight. So the strategy is to take advantage of these very wide avenues and connect through green the bigger green areas in the city, like Collserola Natural Park, Montjuic, the coast, the two rivers, etc. No? So you can see some examples here. What is the strategy and how to do it? This is the Meridiana Avenue in 60s. So you can also see that it was literally like a highway crossing the city and making like a scar in the neighborhood, dividing absolutely two neighborhoods, actually the same neighborhood dividing it. You can also see that the crossing is not on the level, but on the upper floor. So there are no even sidewalks, right? There are 12 lanes of cars, full, you can see, okay? So this is what was until 90s. And then in 90s, some effort was already done in order to change the situation, right? So there is this big effort and very big, let's say, bet on changing the section of this street just for taking out few lanes of cars. It's still, you can see, it was still like a highway, right? Unfortunately, there is a crossing on the level. There has been built the wider sidewalk and much more trees, etc. But still, there were 8 lanes, right, for crossing the city. So the strategy and this was until 2018, and then the strategy actually is to transform this Meridiana Avenue into this kind of green corridor. So actually to take off one more lane of cars, dedicate actually just 2 lanes for each direction for the private vehicles, and then 1 bus and taxi lane, and then putting the bicycle lanes much more green, widening the sidewalks and with much more permeable soil, etc., etc. So how we do this? This is a strategy, but this is on a long term, right? And we have to do it through phases. This is the first phase that was already done. So once you're in Barcelona, I highly recommend you to go and visit. This is the first part to Meridiana. You can even see that it was implemented even more ambitious than the strategy. Okay, so there is like a Rambla, like a public space in the middle, just 2 lanes for vehicles, 1 for private and 1 for public, and then bicycle lanes. And in the middle, you can see this oasis, right, with a lot of green, with the children playgrounds, with a lot of space for sitting, for chatting, for socializing, etc. So this is the first phase. Nevertheless, the second phase is exactly how the strategy was saying. So introducing much more green, reducing the car lanes, but this is now regarding the quantity, the flux of vehicles that are crossing this path. And now there is a third phase building, because this is the avenue. This is around 8 kilometers crossing the city, so it had to be built through phases. Okay, another green corridor and the strategy of transformation is this diagonal street. So we saw Meridiana, that is this one, and diagonal is this one. So you can see these 2 tram lines that are in the northern and the southern part of the city. Nevertheless, there is this disconnection of just 3 kilometers between these 2 lines. So the strategy is actually to take advantage of this connection of the tramway and to put much more green. So the strategy is to reduce and to change this section, current section of the avenue, and to transform it into much livable space with a public transportation accent. So this is the diagonal avenue historically. So you can see it wasn't so much even busy with vehicles, with private vehicles. It was more like a shared space. Nevertheless, this is a diagonal that we got in the 21st century. So this is another highway, right, in the city, crossing the city. And the strategy says that it should be like this, right? So this part actually of diagonal is currently under construction. So in a few months, it's going to be actually finished, and you can also, if you're staying long enough, you can also see it finished. The idea is to put much more green, to put sustainable public transportation and bicycle lanes in the middle. This is another section. This is also in the process of transformation, so there are works, and this is how it will look in a few months. Okay. Then we're talking about Gloria's Park. So let me just underline that you saw the transformation of Meridiana, okay, this street. Then you saw the transformation of Diagonal, which is this avenue here, right? And then we have a Gloria's, which is this square here, that since Plaza Cerdà was meant to be a new city center. So there is this strong effort from the beginning of Plan Cerdà, 19th century, to actually create this new centrality in this part of the city and develop the new city center. Nevertheless, the problematic with crossing of three big avenues never actually gave room to this area to transform in the new city center. Nevertheless, there were since 2000 or even before, there is a try of centralizing this area, like Jean Nouvel's Tower or this Museum of Contemporary Art or new flea market building, etc. So the problematic of this territory is this huge infrastructure that was built in the 90s for Olympic Games. And actually, it was very useful because this is Gran Via. So the Gran Via is one of the main entrances to the city of Barcelona and one of the main connectors with all this Maresma and all this area of the coast that are, this is the entrance from the coast to the city of Barcelona. The problematic is that this infrastructure was dividing a lot the territory. As you can see, it used to have some green space in the middle. Nevertheless, it never functioned because it was kind of dangerous as well because of its isolation. So the decision was made, okay, in 2014, this roundabout was demolished, and it was published the international competition for this new square of the new city center of the crossing of three big avenues. So the international competition took all these blocks around, okay, and this is the winning solution. It's called Urban Canopy. So the winning solution, as you can see here, is actually a park. So here is what we say that the paradigm changed in how we see the city center and the future of the city, that regarding all the necessities for green and for adapting to climate change, we need new city center, not like a high-rise buildings and the square, but the park. So you can see here that actually how the solution was made with these three avenues. No, we talked about Meridiana, we talked about Diagonals. You saw how they lose somehow the priority over this space. So they're actually releasing this space of heavy traffic. But we still had Gran Via that is crossing this territory. So the solution proposed here a big tunnel that crosses underground, like 800 meters tunnel, very deep, diving into the underground because there are many infrastructures as well crossing here. This is a territory that has a very big complexity because there are 5 neighborhoods meeting here with all their necessities, and also these big infrastructures like a train and a metro and the collectors of the rainwater, etc., etc. So it was very challenging how to actually build this tunnel, and it's done. So once you're here, I also highly recommend to visit this part of the city as well, because it will be very close to our sightseeing space. You can see the part of the park that is finished, this northern part, okay, you will see here. So this is how it looks more or less now. So we have built already, sorry, this part of the park on the northern part of the city, and still now is under construction this southern part, and there is a tunnel that was already built. Okay, so this is how it looks now. The interesting fact that you will see when you're here of this part of the park is this grass area, like a meadow, that is very, very let's say unusual for a city of Barcelona, especially for Mediterranean climate, because we struggle with water, right? We are now in the drought period with the very big droughts, and there is no water. So this grass, even if it looks like a Wimbledon grass, it's not. It's a specially adapted and Mediterranean grass with a very complex maintenance as well. So it works literally as outdoor facility with opening hours, with a person who takes care of entrances and close it in the night. And also you can see these different entrances. Every day is open another one in order to protect the grass and to recover it while you're using the other part. There are different activities as well, etc. So this park area, as you can see, it's a park, but it's on a very high demand. So there are many uses that neighbors wanted for this park, like a space for kids, space for youth, space for culture and the theater, space for animals, etc., etc. So many demands: social housing, infrastructure, etc., etc. Okay, now we are entering to the strategy that is called Superblocks. As you remember, I said in the beginning that now the strategy, let's say, covers all the transformation of public space. So we often say that Superblocks is now actually green streets and green squares. And it's one of the tools in order to naturalize a city and to transform the city. So you can see here what we would say that it's a theoretical model of the transformation. So you can see what was the current model of the streets used. No, we can say that in a Shampoo district, all the streets are more or less the same, right? With the 20 meters wide, right? With the same blocks, orthogonal grid, etc. And the dedication of public space is more or less 50% dedication for a pedestrian and 50% for the vehicle, right? So what this Superblock program proposes is to actually diversify the streets in the way that just some of them are keeping this, what we call going through traffic, or moving from point A to point B in the city. And those streets are those red streets that are actually connecting the city entirely, or metropolitan area. So they cannot be, let's say, cut for the going through traffic. Nevertheless, this 9 blocks area and other streets are released for other uses. So they can be local streets, like the one that they're having some connectivity on the local level, or these ones that we call neighborhood or green streets that are the most interesting for us. So you can see here that the idea of Superblock is to combine the sustainable transport and mobility together with what we call staying. This another new use of public space, and especially for street, which is street is not just for moving from A to B, but to spend time and socialize and play. So we create this space for staying that you will see. I just want to mention that the Superblock model that I'm explaining here is the one that was, let's say, the challenge for this orthogonal grid of 20-meter wide streets. Nevertheless, we used to work with Superblock's transformation and pacification of the city in a different typology of grids and different network, where, for example, in Barcelona, there are other neighborhoods with very narrow streets, like old towns. So here was much more natural transforming and pedestrianizing this area, and in a different way. But we will center on the Shampoo district, or this Plan Cerdà. Okay, so in terms of mobility, we always say and talk about grids, about private vehicle, public transportation, bicycle grid, but we never talk about grid for pedestrians, and how we create this grid for safe and comfortable moving by foot in the cities. So I have to mention here that in the city of Barcelona, more than 50% of all internal movements are done by foot. This is a very important fact, knowing that the city has already worked during 30 years with proximity, and all the facilities for daily life are located within 10 to 15 minutes walking in every neighborhood. So we can already say that the city of Barcelona is a 15-minute city. So we know that more than 50% of internal movements are done by foot, so walking, which means that most of the people actually walk on their daily basis, right? So we need to create this grid for pedestrian that will have shadow and other infrastructure in order to facilitate this means of transport, right? Also, we work on improving and extending the bicycle grid. We already have almost 300 kilometers of bicycle grid very well connected, starting from zero just 10 years ago. We also work on improving the public transportation and the orthogonal bus grid, but we want to decrease in the city the use of private vehicle. So Superblocks is a strategy to transform the space, but we also have a plan for mobility that has objectives and lines of action. And one of the objectives is to reduce the use of private vehicles for 2030 for 25%. So we want to decrease the use of private vehicles even more in the city, even if we know that only less than 25% of internal movements are done by private vehicles. Okay. So when we talk about the transformation and this decrease of the use of private vehicle, here I want to mention that we don't work just on those green streets. We also work on what we call main streets. So the strategy is to actually decrease the capacity in entire city for private vehicles, because we learned from cities like Los Angeles that as much as you give space to the private vehicle, it will always be a traffic jam, and it will not be a solution for, no, giving more lane is not a solution for a traffic jam. So what we want is to decrease the number of lanes in the city in general. So main streets will pass from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, decreasing the number of vehicles and especially decreasing the speed in these streets. The local streets, we are decreasing from 2 lanes to 1 lane and decreasing the speed for 30 kilometers per hour. And what are the most important for us are the green streets that we decrease from 2 lanes to 1 lane. But attention, this 1 lane is not for vehicle priority, it's for pedestrian priority. So we'll see how. So in those green streets, the Superblock strategy main feature is that all the vehicles are welcome to access this area. Nevertheless, they have to respect the pedestrian priority and decrease their speed to 10 per hour or less. Okay, so you will see how it's done. So this is the general vision of transformation of the city, introducing this green street network. So actually covering entire city with the Superblock strategy. So the idea is that those green streets create a new environmental infrastructure as well. So providing the city with this environmental infrastructure and uses where pedestrians and areas to relax take priority. Okay, we have to start from somewhere. So we started from the most densest part of the city, which is this Shampoo district, as you remember from the beginning. We know that this district in general terms is very dense with the vehicles as well. You can see that there are many vehicles crossing daily this area, much more than actually the ring roads that were built for absorbing this heavy traffic. The consequence of this is a high level of concentration of NO2, so very poor air quality. Nevertheless, we know that this area is the best covered with the public transportation. So the strategy of Superblock for this area is for 2030 to cover with 21 green street and 21 green square all this area in order to have proximity of 200 meters for entire local population. Okay, this is regarding a Shampoo district. Okay, so as I said, now for the big projects, we are working in phases. So this is the first phase, which is 4 new green streets and 4 new green squares. This is actually already built. It started a year ago, so we already have built these 4 new green streets. So Are there any ideas to design this new green street? Well, we have published the international competition and also worked with the winning team during a few years, during 2 years, in order to design this model, new urban model for designing the green streets. So the conclusion is that we want to put people in the center, we want to make a green infrastructure, and we want to activate this local commerce. So regarding the first topic, so we said we generate a one-level street, where pedestrians have priority and vehicles are allowed to access, but decreasing the speed for 10 per hour. So this is general for Superblocks areas in entire city. Then we work on this new model as green streets and the squares, and we also improve what we call basic streets as well, right? With those half squares. Now we'll see how. Regarding lighting, we adapt for more pedestrian lighting and more comfortable for human scale. We also introduce much more furniture for sitting, staying, and spending time and socializing. We also introduce some elements of kids' leisure and spontaneous play in these new areas. Regarding green infrastructure, we want to. The idea is to increase, and it's already increased, for 12% the permeable planted area, which means that we passed from 1% to 12%, right, of this permeable area. We also put more trees and more diverse trees. Also, these trees are put in more towards the center of the streets, so they can develop their full canopy, and not being like asymmetrical when they're so close to the facade. Also, there is a work on enriching the soil in order to have this better vegetation in these streets. And we also calculate all the ecological footprint of every action and every element that is introduced in this new space. So this is interesting, water cycle. For example, all these 12% of new permeable soil and plantable area are actually sustainable urban drainage systems. So you can also come and see when you arrive here. And this means that those areas retain the rainwater during 48 hours, and then they filter it slowly to the subsoil, because then we use this subsoil water, underground water, for watering the plants, because all the green, more or less, almost all green Barcelona is maintained and watered, right? We don't have vegetation that is not maintained and watered. Regarding local commerce, we already know that in the process of pacification and transformation of the streets to a public space, we know that the local commerce is activated, because the shops are much more visible. The pedestrians are the one who actually enter to local shops, right, and buy more. So we know this. So this is just for you to see how this transformation of the 4 new green streets started. So this was 2020 in the pandemics. It was already done some tactical urbanism in order to already save the space for then future transformation. So we already took 1 lane from the cars, and this is what was the winning solution for this new green streets. This is how it more or less looks now. I don't have here the picture, but as you will come here, so feel free to visit it. Regarding new squares, so the idea of Superblocks is to actually transform this typical intersection of 2 streets, asphalt area, to the more permeable and more green and space for people and for car. So this is how it used to look, for example, one of those new squares, and this is how it looks now, or how it will look when everything is flourishing in future. This is another one, and this is how what is the solution for this one. And there are 4 of them in this new stage of the Superblocks. So we know that this Superblock strategy works because previously we already implemented 2 pilots, as you might know. So in 2016, there was implemented a pilot in Poblenou, that there will be more words. I will not speak now about Poblenou because we will make a site visit and we will speak about it in that moment. Nevertheless, I want to mention the one in San Antonio that is implemented in 2018. So 1, to 2 years after the first pilot. So there were some learnings that I will also explain during our site visit that we learned from Poblano in 2016, and then changed the way how we introduce this model into 2018. Nevertheless, we have some data. We also have data for 2022 on environmental aspects, but we can analyze here until 2019, just before pandemics, because it's more also more real. But then we have also for 2022 that are developed. So in this San Antonio area, in the entire neighborhood, because in this case we analyzed entire neighborhood, we increased for almost 24,000 square meters of new space for pedestrian and for green and for socializing. Also, regarding the air pollution, we know that in this spot here, in the crossing of two previous streets, we decreased for 33% the NO2, air pollution, and also for 4% of PM10. PM10 is the global, let's say, pollutant, those finest particles. It is very hard to reduce in a local way. Nevertheless, NO2 is a very local pollutant, and so we see that we can decrease this. Regarding noise, this is noise. During the day, evening, and night, we decreased around 5 decibels, which is a lot. 5 decibels, 6 is already a half of the noise that we can hear, actually. So regarding vehicles, now we can see that there are much less vehicles in this spot here. Nevertheless, in the adjacent street, it's only increased by 22%. So 60% of vehicles actually evaporated. This is a specific term that mobility experts use. And we also increased the presence of pedestrians. Okay, regarding NO2 and air quality, we can see that if we introduce and implement entire strategy of transforming the public space in the city, we can reduce a lot this component, right? And if we introduce all the Superblocks model and transformation of public space in the city, we can save yearly around 667 premature deaths, and you can see they're divided by specific problematics in the city. And this is very important to know about noise. There are many premature deaths for noise. Okay, so jumping for proximity and very fast, because we don't have more time. We want short distances city, we want new mobility, we work with gender approach, and we want to recover the calm and the senses in the city. So as I already mentioned, the city of Barcelona works on proximity during 30 years already in order to have all the facilities for everyday life within 10 to 15 minutes walking. This is a spread of the public markets, and this is the image of how are spread the public libraries in the city. And this is the same with the healthcare centers or other uses like elderly homes or kindergartens or schools, etc. So regarding this, we work also in transforming the public space with this strategy that is called Let's Protect Schools. Actually, it is about we have 600 schools, public and private, in the city, primary and secondary schools. So the idea is to protect surrounding of these schools in order to protect kids from noise, from to introduce and improve security, etc., and road safety, etc. So the objectives are improving the environmental quality, because most of them are located on the very frequent streets, improving the comfort of public space, improve the road safety, which is very important, increase the visualization of school surrounding, and involve local communities in the solution. So how can we improve 200 schools in 4 years, or for 2030, all 600 schools? Well, through tactical urbanism. This is something very interesting that you'll also see when you come here. So we say it's with less resources, quick implementation, and very economic. So we have different strategies on how we develop these interventions. Now you can see different ways. For example, this one is very interesting because it's literally taking out vehicles from this part and dedicate this space for kids for socializing after school, before school, etc. When it's not possible, at least there is this time, a time schedule, for kids and closing the streets. Then there are other examples like this one, introducing furniture, no tactical elements, cheap elements with painting and with some furniture in green in order to make this space useful, no? Or this one, as you can see how it used to look and how it look now, or this one. Okay, and this is another example. This is another strategy. This is actually a bottom up, no? It started from the proper schools. They wanted to organize this BC bus, moving every Friday at 8 a.m. with the kids occupying entire streets in order to develop this custom of using sustainable transport and bicycles. This is another strategy in open streets, no? This is how we actually just closing the streets for other uses, but very big streets that is impossible to transform. They're like arteries in the city for traffic. So at least like once per month we can close them, and they're full of activities and other uses. It also started during the pandemics. Okay, so regarding collaboration, and this is my last slides, we have participatory processes and we have new digital tools. We will see how. So city is what we do together, right? This is the slogan that we use. So we have regulated participatory process, and we run this participatory process in two scales. So on a city scale and on the neighborhood scale, involving different communities. We also work and with these driving groups, or group impulsor, how we call. We also try to work specifically with specific groups of stakeholders, especially involving the most vulnerable groups like women, elderly people, kids, or special communities like blind people, etc. And that's it. This is, for example, the participation process that was during the implementation, after the implementation of Superblock in Poblenou, that you will see in person in a few weeks. This is very interesting because in Poblenou, there was a very big, let's say, like a manifest against this transformation in the first place. And here in the first row, you can see our deputy mayor defending and explaining to the neighbors what is it about, why we are introducing such a pilot, why in this territory, why it's so important, visualizing all the problematics in the city that we have, etc. As I said, we try to work very closely to develop the safe space for collaboration with specific groups. This is, for example, exercise with the blind people. And again, we have this digital tool. This is a last slide regarding participation process. We run the participation process in person, but also during. Through this digital tool, it's an open code, so it's open source. Many cities can use it, and I know many cities are using it. It's very practical because there are all the content online, and you can always consult it, and you can always use this space. And we, for example, also published the part of the budget, city budget, asking people where they want to allocate this budget for what kind of strategies. And the most of them were actually Superblocks in their own neighborhood. So thank you very much. This is just the kind of invitation that in 2026, Barcelona will be World Capital of Architecture by UNESCO, and you're all welcome to visit Barcelona and the Congress that we're preparing. So thank you very much. And please, if you have any questions, I am very happy to answer.
So I will reformulate one question that I have here. And we were wondering if you have any plan for a future Superblock already, or you're just working on planning and, well, still deliberating what to do.
We, as you might know, we had the change in the government as well in the last election. So we are now actually in the process of seeing how to continue with the strategy, and will it continue in the same way, or there will be some changes in the strategy or improving the strategy. So I think we have many analysis and very much of work done regarding some new areas. Nevertheless, I think we should wait for all the new government in order to understand what will be the priorities.
I think that your presentation was quite Good. So
Thank
there
you
are
so
no
much.
questions here. Of course, there will be some questions during the walking tour, I'm sure.
Of course.
So thank you very much for being here. The students who could not attend will watch these in the landing. So, well, thank you.
Thank you
Very
so much
glad
for
to have
inviting
you.
me. Thank you so much, Julieta, for inviting me, and happy to see you on our site visit.
So see you then. Thank
See
you.
you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.